Wake up, everyone. It's time for the UFL Championship game just hours away. But first, we've got some information from yesterday's media event at the Dome at America Center leading up to the UFL 2025 Championship game with UFL executives Russ, Daryl Johnston, and Dany Garcia, who all took the stage to discuss the UFL and its future. This article comes to us from James Larsen with Pro Football Newsroom, who had boots on the ground at the Dome at America Center covering this media event. So let's go ahead and dive right on into it, because I do have some opinions based on what was said by the UFL executives and just how this works with expansion, with relocation, things like that were brought up. So let's go ahead and talk about that. There is no question about it, as James says, the UFL has faced some adversity over the last couple years. They've had to build something from the ground up, merging two spring leagues that both had their pros and cons. Dany Garcia says, let's just start with, we launched a spring football league. The ambitions, the tenacity that we have to bring constantly to be a part of this ecosystem. Take care of our athletes, work with our partners and markets and stadiums. There's nothing about what we do that doesn't require a chip on our shoulder, get after it attitude, knowing that we are swinging for the fences. Having the discipline to do it every day, that attitude speaks to who we all are, said Dany Garcia. One of those struggles has been the league's attendance. 7 of the UFL's 8 markets saw a decrease in overall attendance for the 2025 season, with Michigan being the lone city to show improvements. Russ addressed this topic going back to the fact that the UFL is still young and needs time to fully develop their local strategies. Let's say that again for the people in the back. Needs time to fully develop their local strategies. This is exactly what I've been preaching over the past 2 months, especially when other media organizations have come out and claimed that the UFL is moving all these different teams, such as Birmingham, Houston, Memphis. We're moving them all. We're relocating the teams. This does not sound like this at all, and it just shows that the league is still young. It's 18 months old. Let's not forget about that. Yes, we're finishing year 2 of the UFL tonight, but the league itself is still brand new. From our standpoint, our main focus coming out of the merger closing on January 13th, 2024, going into training camp on February 28th, we were drinking out of a fire hose. Now, we've heard this whole speech before. I believe this is by Russ operationally. As we have new buildings and rescale new things, our main focus now is local market activation. Get more people in the building. We have an incredible product, incredible coaches and players. You see it in the ratings, which have been phenomenal, which is an interesting thing too, because we do know that ratings have dropped during the 2025 season, but it does seem like they at least think they are in a phenomenal position. We have seen some decline, and we're looking at every way to re-engage and look at our marketplace in each separate silo. We know this. We have a great product. We know it's affordable, and we want to activate as much as we can in these local markets. I will say right off the bat that we did kind of hear some of this last year about getting into the markets and whatnot. I still think that they should, of course, be in these local markets to promote and practice and things like that instead of just being in a hub format. But the league has even said in recent interviews with Russ on a St. Louis radio station that they have no plans of changing that, at least this year. But speaking of markets, of course, a big topic at hand is expansion, James says. It's been something that has been rumored and talked about for several months now. Russ was asked about the expansion process and where the league is at on that end. He goes, I think first and foremost, it's amazing that we're here again in St. Louis. Really blessed to have these teams here. We've talked about it last time we were together and our process when it came to expansion. We're looking into the process and taking a lot of rigor to it. We're taking a lot of time and effort to do it the right way. And as far as ownership is concerned, they are up to date on our process. That's the main reason we didn't put a timeline on it. And we went through it from a very authentic position with a lot of integrity. I think as we stand now, we will continue to look at it over the next few months. I think it's in a very good place from a process standpoint, Russ Brandon. Now, I will say, before I go further with Daryl Johnston's sentiment on it is interesting with the sources that James Larsen has talked to and everything like that about this so-called spot during halftime that they were saving for expansion. I am more on track to say either they are completely being bullish up front with this expansion talk during this press conference and just leading us down the same road, and that tonight we will get some kind of announcement instead of them saying over the next few months we'll be figuring that out. Maybe they're figuring out over the next few months of ramping up those locations and announcing it tonight. I still want to say right off the bat, I would say do not get your hopes up. We know that there is a band playing during halftime. I do not see at this very moment that the UFL will be announcing expansion at halftime. That's just my guess. I don't think it's going to happen. I'm not going to get my hopes up on it. Quite frankly, I think that, as I had talked about prior to James Larsen's thing, is that if they were going to announce expansion, I didn't think it was going to necessarily be until August, September timeframe. I mean, we're talking about a league that waits last minute for everything. They've done that going back to the XFL, USFL, leadership. I mean, even the UFL, we're in month 17 of the league, and we still are having issues that should have been taken care of like last year. So I would find it hard to believe that the league would expand. They'll do it. I still think 2026 is where they're going to add the two teams. I do still feel there is that agreement or the understanding with the requirement with the federal government and the Department of Justice, unless something completely has changed on that front. But I would assume that's not the case when they sign contracts and stuff like that to merge the leagues. But anyway, back to Daryl Johnston following up on it. There won't be any expansion announcements anytime soon, he says, at least as far as these statements go anyway. It appears that no decision have ultimately been made as they continue to hash out the details for the future. Again, he says, I think one of the things Russ always talks about is the incremental growth and doing it in a way that is sound, providing us an opportunity to be sustainable moving forward. It's great to see how many people are interested in topics when we talk about expansion, but when it's right for the league, that's when we'll make that decision. What's important to us is that as we build this incrementally, we're built on a sound platform moving forward, Daryl Johnston stated. Dany Garcia on it says this league is all about culture. This is something that she's installed into the hearts of fans from the XFL and now the UFL. This league is about grit, opportunity, and proving people wrong, and it's that camaraderie that Garcia wants to see more moving forward. She says, as a visionary, it's a team vision. What I want to see is what we all want to see. The clicking in with the consumer is obvious. This league continuing to be that opportunity for our athletes where their performance here matters. The evolution is what we started. This is very weird how she talked. We had so many meetings about how to grow this league. We have a very specific culture. Getting the headquarters and having that was so pivotal because now our culture is very dense. It's our time to take the culture to a new level. And she even said, like, I watched the recording of her talking, and she kind of said she wanted to put her spin on it, and she didn't want to ruin anything when it comes to expansion or spoil anything. So I think that there is a possibility that they are completely being bullish here and not really telling us the truth of what is coming, because when they say that the league needs to be at a sound spot in order to expand, I do think like they are in a sound spot. We've heard that from them in prior like conversations that league executives have had, whether it's been on a podcast, a radio show, or an interview like this, that they feel like, yes, there's been some decline. Yes, there's been marketing that needs to be worked on. But we've heard from numerous times from Daryl Johnston and Russ Brandon that the league is at a very sound spot and they are very happy with the future of what they're looking to do. So I think this is a tongue-in-cheek kind of conversation they're having, because they're not going to come out and say something to the media the day before they could potentially be announcing something and spoil that, which Dany Garcia kind of hinted to. But we'll see. I still don't think it'll happen, but maybe we'll all get surprised tonight. James says, if we're being completely honest, not a whole lot came out of this press conference with the UFL's executives. The biggest nugget per se was Russ Brandon addressing that the league is looking at potentially moving the season up a few weeks. It remains to be seen as to what will happen on that end. For now, expansion and or relocation remain up in the air. Russ, Dany, and Daryl kept things tight to the chest in regards to those conversations. So we'll have to see what ultimately happens in the offseason for the UFL. And again, this is where I kind of draw that faction here, that line where I don't know if I 100% trust what those three are saying, in the sense that they don't already know what's happening. I do agree that, to me, the way Russ Brandon talks about the knowing that the markets need more injection of the league, essentially, in promoting and stuff like that, kind of, to me, seems that they're not relocating teams. I still don't understand that concept. If your league, let's say they are expanding, right? If your league is so sound at this very moment, then why in the world, or is at that point, why in the world would you then at this point relocate teams? If you can't even control your current markets, how are you going to expand? Or even, as I've talked about, how are those new shiny gold toys or markets per se on this hand, how are they going to work if you're not injecting the same exact like concept into there? Again, a shiny new market may be nice up front, but we've seen even this year, and there's a lot of factors that kind of go into this conversation. We have seen the shiny gold egg kind of start fading away a little bit with the St. Louis market. And in my opinion, and I talked about this in the last video where we were talking about this, is the oversaturation of football in that area with how many games that they have had in St. Louis. I do think the league in general needs to take a swift break from the St. Louis market when it comes to the championship game in 2026. They need to go somewhere else. You cannot depend on that market again and try to depend on the St. Louis Battlehawks making the championship game for the third straight year in a row next year, because I think you're going to tire these fans into the fact that the attendance is going to continue to drop because it's just too much for the crowd. Again, 5-game season, you potentially have the conference championship game and then the championship game, plus you added an extra game in this season. That's a lot. And St. Louis fans, and even in the comments of my videos, have talked about this. So I think that's kind of something they need to realize, is that if you keep shoving a market down our throats, even though it's a very successful market, it's going to wear off eventually, and it's not going to work as to what they're looking at. I mean, let's be honest. It's just the case. The highest marketed game in the St. Louis market was last season, 2024, with the Arlington Renegades. I think it was week 2 or 3 when they had just over 40,000 in attendance. That's a big part there that we've got to kind of hold on to and value that market and treat them right and not oversaturate the overall perspective. So again, I can't wait for the championship game tonight. We will see you back here tonight for the full recap of the 2025 UFL Championship game. We'll see you on the flip side. Have a great one, everyone.